What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. This is the podcast where we dive into the deepest, darkest, murkiest waters with a plethora of legendary guests. I am the number one scumbag, your bastard of ceremonies, Rex Ruger. That's Rex with 3 X's. You might also know me as AKA the King of Sleaze, AKA the Hair Metal High Priest, AKA the man with the golden pipes and the velvet tongue, and most importantly, AKA Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. And the hard science is almost conclusive on that. And we will once and for all learn that I am the son of glam, the front man for the band. Just smoked a few grams, got a million fans. I'm your ice cream man, Mr. Wop Babaloo Boppa Wop Bam Bam Shazam. Hot damn! Coming to you as always from the Pink Pussycat Lounge, the Den of Sin. Joined as always by my co-host, color commentator, and bongo player extraordinaire, and 1986 world champion, Mr. Keith Hernandez. Number 17 in your programs and number 1 in your hearts. And speaking of pounding on my heart, today's shirt of the day, the legendary White Snake, David Coverdale and the boys. Yeah. Not quite as nice a head of hair as me, but pretty close. And you might be asking, Rex, how do I get that hair? Well, look no further. Feast your eyes on this product and use it responsibly. We got ozone problems, so think before you spray. Of course, this is the No Frills podcast. You get no frills because you get plenty of thrills, and those thrills are looking at me. Plus, I am very stupid when it comes to technology, so you don't get little cute shit bouncing across your screen, little glitz, little bells and whistles. You just get to feast your eyes on moi. And Pop's back here, of course. And you, Keith. I don't want to diminish your role on the show. Let me give myself a look here. It's like playing a game. Find the bad side. There isn't one. Of course, I am the hardest working man in show business, not only bringing you this podcast, but fronting numerous glam and sleaze metal bands in the tri-state New York area and up and down the eastern seaboard. But enough about me. We have, as always, a great guest for you today. So we'll get right down to the brass tacks and get him in here because I am very, very excited. And I think you guys will enjoy this one. This is a good Pod Scum episode right here. Going to get ourselves a bona fide legend. But if you've been watching what I do, you know that that's all I deal with are legends. Because when, you're a legend yourself, like I am, and granted, you might say that that legend status is inherited from the old man, but hey, here we are anyway, right? So today, very excited about today's show. We might even get Keith Hernandez to play a little something on the bongos for us back there if the spirit moves them. But if not, oh well, who cares? We got a good one for you today, so let's get down to it. Oh, there he is. Look at that. Hey, wait a minute now. Brad Loree, I don't feel like I'm looking into the eyes of evil.
Well, think twice, Mark. And check under the bed tonight before you go to sleep.
I guess I'm going to have to. I think you need to turn yourself the other way, though.
Oh, is that right?
I've got you. Yeah, I've got you on your side.
Okay. Let me see what I can do about
that. There you go.
Hang on. There we go. Oh, shit. Sorry, Mark. Yeah, I like the horizontal thing. Where'd you go? Here we are. Does that work for you? Is. There you go.
Brad Loree.
Yes, sir.
A good Canadian, a good actor, a good stuntman, and a hell of a good Michael Myers. If people don't know, because obviously, how would they? You're under a mask the whole time, but you are one of the legendary guys who donned the mask for a Michael Myers movie. And the thing that I find interesting is that you were in 2002's Halloween Resurrection, which is a very polarizing installment of the movies. People either love it or they hate it. Where do you look back on it now and put it as far as the legacy of the Halloween movies?
Mark, it was really poorly received when I first started doing conventions and what have you. But lately, when I go to shows, there's a new generation of Halloween fans that saw Resurrection as their first Halloween movie. And I watched part of it the other day. And Mark, I don't want to say it was ahead of its time, but with the technology and the text messaging, which we're all doing today, I think it's really caught up to the contemporary norm. And I actually like the film. I like the film because, of course, I have nothing but fond memories.
Right.
I loved everybody I worked with, and I thought it was really well shot. I thought it was a half decent story. I thought the acting was great, and I thought the kills were cool.
I couldn't agree with you more. And not to mention a nice nod to the past, because it was directed by Rick Rosenthal, who also directed Halloween 2.
Yes, and Jamie came and visited us for a weekend, which was nice.
And Jamie came and visited you. And let's also not forget that despite the fact that we've gotten several movies after the movie that you were in, you were the first person on screen to kill Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, Laurie Strode bit the dust.
Yeah, she did, didn't she?
She kissed me before she fell to her death. Let's point that out, Mark.
Yes. A lot of people don't realize Michael Myers was kissed by Jamie Lee Curtis. And so I'm going to backtrack for a minute because I got so much stuff to talk to you about. First of all, you tried out for the role of Jason Voorhees, and is it true that at 6'2" you were deemed as too short for the role?
Yeah, I can't remember the producer's name, but he had seen me being interviewed on the set of Halloween, and he was somewhat impressed with how much thought I put into the role, Mark, being a guy with no dialogue in a mask.
Right.
And so he had me come in, and we chatted, and then he called Ronnie into the room, and Ronnie said, "Sorry, you're just not tall enough." And so then they went on this big cattle call, and I thought to myself, well, if I don't get it, I hope Ken gets it, because Ken Kersinger is one of the two guys that got me in the business.
Right.
If it wasn't for Ken Kersinger, you and I wouldn't be sitting here right now. So when he came around to him, I was so tickled that he got it, and we get to travel together and do the conventions together. He gets invited to a lot more, Mark, but, when we can. We've been to Europe together 2 or 3 times, and we have a blast. Yeah.
Now, I'm curious to get your take because, it has been 20 years since Resurrection, the Halloween movie that you were in. There's been a bunch made afterwards. All of them, I guess, polarizing in their own respect. The Rob Zombie ones, the current 3 that we've gotten from David Gordon Green and the Blumhouse crew. Where do you view everything that's come after that? Have you liked some of it? Have you not liked some of it?
I'll tell you, I watched the first Halloween, the Rob Zombie Halloween, Mark, and I felt they demystified the guy. They gave us way too much information about his backstory. He's way too... The mystique around Michael Myers is we never really understood what he was and why he was. We didn't understand why he was super strong for a fairly normal-sized guy. I mean, now they've made all these guys so big that it's... it's a physical fear. It's not a spiritual or a mystical fear that we have of the guys. There's very little. It's not as cryptic as it used to be. Like, we don't have those eerie questions that the fans have to make up in their own heads.
Right.
Everybody has to decide for themselves, and the mind's far more interesting than
I think what you're getting at is like you see a guy who's like 6'8", damn near 300 pounds, like a Tyler Mane, and you think this is a guy that's going to crush most people anyway.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he doesn't need any superhuman strength or any kind of a backstory. This is a guy that if you run into in an alley, he's probably going to fuck you up no matter what.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how about these last 3 that we got from Blumhouse? First of all, have you seen the new Halloween Ends?
I have not, sir. I have not seen Kills. I tried to watch Kills, and it started out okay, and then it just got jumping all over the place. Jamie never got out of the hospital. What the fuck am I watching this for?
I know.
The one she made in 18, I gotta say, not bowled over by. It seemed to be this rehashing the same old. There wasn't a lot of there wasn't much new and novel about it. And I mean, because I'm not a big horror fan, but I am a huge fan of the first 2 Halloween movies and the genre itself and the Accods and everyone that's been involved.
Sure.
So I will watch them at some point. I'm very curious about this last one because some people say wow and some people say no. And I mean, it's all for ourselves to judge, right? But no,
right.
I have to watch it. I have to watch both of them because I'm going to see Jamie in Pasadena next October, a year from now. She's apparently coming to a convention. And anyway, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, Mark. Anyway, maybe edit that. Anyway, are we live?
No.
Okay, brother. Yeah, maybe just edit that out, Mark, because I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything.
Okay.
Anyway, and I mean, I'm not even 100% that's guaranteed. I just anyway. So I will watch them, but for myself, it's the original that I watch over and over. I just
it's really the blueprint. It is.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Nick Castle is always will be my Michael Myers. I'm very good friends with Dick Warlock, who I love to death, because I remember watching the second one. I remember sitting in the theater going, as sequels goes, this is one of the best second films I've ever seen.
I couldn't agree with you more, Brad.
Yeah.
I think that Halloween 2 gets criminally underrated, and sometimes when AMC will be running their October Fear Fest, it doesn't even get stuck on the TV that much sometimes.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. Yeah, you're right.
And I'm always wondering, what the hell is it about this movie, man, that people don't embrace? First of all, you know, I love what Dick Warlock did. He made him very catatonic. He put a lot into the posture, in the walk. Yeah. What goes into making a good Michael Myers, though? Like, what did you want to bring to the role? Is that stuff all important? Because obviously you don't have lines and dialect to memorize.
Well, there's the one scene in the original where he is walking from across the street to the house where Jamie is bordered up with the two little kids, and she ends up stabbed. There's a one fairly long shot of him walking, and that was the walk that was so slow and yet methodical and purposeful. And the way Rick Rosenthal described it, he said, "It's like your upper body isn't moving, Brad. Your hips and legs are transporting the upper body, so it kind of glides on top of the hips and legs." So I really strive for that. I watched Nick and Dick over and over, but especially Nick. And the only thing I really felt I brought, and it's been I've been complimented on this, especially by Dick Warlock, is, Mark, whenever we had a medium shot or a close-up shot of Michael Myers, I would slightly cross my eyes to try and take the focus out of them, because I wanted his eyes to look like a shark's eyes. Sharks swim and kill. Michael Myers walks and kills. I want his eyes to look soulless and like it's dead, you know? That's what I tried to do. And Dick Warlock, I don't know how he even picked up on that, but he said, Brad, and he's actually publicly stated that he actually thought that I was the best Michael Myers ever because of that. He's actually said that in print, God bless him. But I think that Nick's the guy, as is Dick. But anyway, that's what I brought to the table. And I was very nervous when we first started, because it was a really big deal to me. I mean, I'm just a stunt guy, and now I'm the lead, and you can't see me, which helped me my difference a lot. But Rick is one direction off to his, Brad, just nice and slow, take your time, you know, because.
And were you happy with the mask in the movie that you did? Because a lot of people are very polarized by the masks too, and I've seen whole YouTube specials where people will dissect the various looks of the mask throughout the years.
Well, Mark, when I went to interview with the executives, I went there as a professional courtesy. I had just come off a show that was going to do. We were certain it was going to go into a second season. I had no intention of leaving that show, but when they said to me, sorry, I just had a call.
It's all right.
When so they said, okay, Brad, you're the first guy we've talked to. We got to look at others, but if we do decide to go with you, we're going to have to fly you down to LA to cast your head from the mask. And I said, well, I got to go all the way to LA just to double somehow my actor, because I thought I was doubling the guy. And they said, no, you're not going to double the guy. You're going to be the guy.
Yeah. And
that's when the fan of the first Halloween movie and the actor in me said, oh, Brad, you got to take this job. And Mark, that was the best move I ever made, because the show did come back for the second season, but in the middle of the third episode, the producers walked on set and pulled the plug.
So things are meant to work out the way they're supposed to.
Sometimes your gut tells you where to go. Trust your instincts.
So we touched on a couple of the guys in the past. You know, we mentioned Nick Castle, we mentioned Dick Warlock. I mentioned a few minutes ago about Tyler Mane, who did the Rob Zombie ones. But are there other guys in there, you know, like threaded throughout the franchise who you have any kind of commentary on or critique on how they did? Obviously, Chris Durand was the movie before you, and H2O. My mind's eluding me on some of the other ones, but some of the other
Shanks and Don Shanks, George Wilbur.
Well, George Wilbur, yep.
Tom Morga.
Yep.
Tom Morga being the only stunt guy to ever play both Michael and Jason Voorhees. Just so you know.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah,
I've gotten to know the guys fairly well, and I love them all.
Yeah.
My only thing is, it's funny you mentioned Chris Duran and H2O, because we did a Q&A one time, and everyone was being asked who they emulated, this and that. And Chris goes, "Oh, I didn't watch any of the other guys. I just did it my way." And I didn't say anything because I love Chris, but I hate the fact that he didn't put any effort into studying the guy. Like, he hit the whole movie. It looks like a regular dude dressed up as Michael Myers. He doesn't come across as Michael Myers at all.
Again, I couldn't agree with you more. And it's odd enough. I was just taking some notes and writing down some bullet points of stuff I wanted to talk to you about, and watching some stuff on YouTube. And his portrayal of Michael in a lot of character studies, and people that just go on there and do their rants and their podcast episodes about the various movie installments. He gets hammered a lot for being the worst Michael Myers.
That does not surprise me, and it's a shame, because it wasn't a bad film.
Not at all. No.
And he's such a great guy. And but Chris is pretty laid back. I'm sure he has no qualms about the way he did it, but because he got paid and he still goes to conventions. But yeah, no, and I got to be honest, Mark, when I got the job, I watched all the Halloweens, but I fast forwarded. I didn't bother with the plot and all that, and just watched the Michael Myers. I only ever watched them once, and they all kind of melded into one. And that's when I went back to watching primarily Nick Castle. I just watched the first one over and over and over, and practiced the head tilt and walking like his shoulders, hips, and head. They don't bob at all when he walks. He kind of just kind of glides like Rick described. You know? So that's what I was trying for.
And so having a relationship with these guys, and as you mentioned, going to the various conventions and getting to know them, has Nick Castle ever mentioned to you? Because obviously he was the first Michael Myers. They were kind of flying on a shoestring budget. Everything was just kind of very organic and very kind of do it yourself. Did he ever give any kind of inclination as to how he prepared for the role? Because he wasn't really like a hugely trained actor or somebody with a huge acting background. How did he capture Michael Myers?
Well, Mark, that's a good question, because I haven't ever heard him say that what kind of thought he put into it, but I did see a documentary that suggested that, apart from the fact that he was hounding the director,
John Carpenter,
to let me work on and learn how to movie make. He wanted to learn the craft, but John Carpenter liked the way he walked.
Yep.
And so he said, "You're going to be this. You're going to do this and this, but you're going to be the guy." I mean, he was one of 5 guys in the first one. That
right.
Tony Moran, I think. I can't remember who did the backwards fall off the deck when he gets shot at the end. I thought that was George Wilbur, but Wilbur was in 4 and 6. Anyway, that's what I understand, was that he just, because of the way he walked, that's why John wanted him for the long shots where you see him walk. Yeah. So
now, do you think sometimes it's easy for a role like that? And I don't know if you went through any of this yourself, but do you think sometimes, as we mentioned, Chris Duran, like really not doing any prep or going back and watching any of the installments of the movie, do you think sometimes it's easy to do that with a movie like that because there's no dialogue, and you might look at the role as just, okay, I put on a mask and I just walk around and kill people?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand Chris's, but I'm wondering, had he never seen the first one? Because anybody that's watched the first one of the creepy things about the guy was his gait, the way he moved, and I can't imagine. I have to say, I mean, Chris was a stunt guy like myself, and a lot of stunt guys aren't interested in being actors or performers. They just So he just, there wasn't a thought process to him. But I really wanted, like I said, to be like, I wanted to try and copy Nick, and I for myself, I just had to You know, like when I was asked, I can't remember exactly what I said, but in my mind, he was like a man child who doesn't understand life and death. He doesn't understand his physical exception. And when he's killing people, he's like a cat playing with a mouse.
Right.
That eventually doesn't understand why the mouse that it's dead and doesn't want to play. And that's why he tilts his head. He doesn't understand why the game's over. You know? Right.
That's
what I felt, you know.
And I agree with you. I think the gait and the head tilt, as you mentioned, and the little subtle nuances are, you know, I think it's almost criminal to not study those, because I think they all go into making an effective Michael Myers. I mean,
well, you know, where your mind goes, your body follows. And I just think, you know, because I know Kenny put some thought into Jason. He didn't just run around, you know, he put a lot of thought into it too. So, but to each his own. I mean,
was it intimidating? When you get that role, are you intimidated because he is such an iconic, such a staple in the horror film genre? Is there any kind of pressure on you? Like, you know, as we mentioned, there's no dialogue to memorize and your face is hidden under a mask. But do you yourself, when you accept the role, do you put any pressure on yourself saying, wow, this guy has already had a lot of movies made about him, and he is kind of right up there with Freddy and Jason as an iconic, horror character?
Well, absolutely, Mark. I'm not a horror fan. I was dating a girl when I was a kid for a couple of years, and all she wanted to see was horror films. So I just hated him. And when we broke up, I was heartbroken. But I said to myself, well, at least I never have to watch another horror film. And like a week later, everybody and their dog was talking about this movie, Halloween. And I said, I don't want to hear about it. I don't care. But everyone insists. I knew that story forwards and backwards long before my cousin Diana said, you know, Brad, I saw it and I really enjoyed it. And because I respected her taste, I went and rented the film, and I was maybe halfway through it. And I said to myself, this movie is an excellent film of any genre, because it's not overly bloody, gory, and violent like the other films I'd seen, but I'm biting my nails on the edge of my seat because the guy's gosh darn creepy. And so, because I had such reverence for the character and the original film, it was really a big deal to me. And it was one of the questions I asked Malika Cod when we were down in LA. I said, one of the things I asked was, are we going to tone down the blood, gore, and violence? Because I find the horror films today are way over the top. It's like they're all trying to do one another. And he said, no, Brad, we're going to try and go back to the old school, suspenseful, like the original style.
Yeah.
Kind of art house, almost a student film look, you know, like which is what the first one was almost, you know.
Absolutely.
And, so I was really appreciative of that, you know. And people ask, what was your favorite kill? Well, obviously getting kissed by Jamie Lee Curtis, but I'm also a huge fan of Katie Sackhoff. And I thought that the scene where I cut her head off and her head rolls down the stairs, I thought it looked so gosh darn believable.
Yeah.
You know, because there was a time where it wasn't like Frank, what's his name, paper mache head that he used to get out of Alcatraz. It was very realistic.
But I'll tell you which one I did like, though, and I will agree, you had some excellent kills in that movie, but you actually got to kill somebody by the dreaded head squeeze.
Oh yeah, Luke, he's
that's a tough way to go out, Brad. I got to say, that's probably
you know what, the way they had the tears coming out of the blood coming out of his eyes. I watched that scene, I think, and the sound effects, and he's held up in the air and his feet are dangling. But so no, and the kills were all unique to one another,
right?
Which I really appreciate, you know. Stabbed one guy with a tripod, and we shot the scene where I came up behind Tyra and choked her with the cables, but they decided to reveal her up in the rafters, which I thought was excellent. But I think even then you could tell it was a different kind of. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I'm interested to get your take, though, because something you had mentioned a couple minutes back, how too much backstory in the Rob Zombie ones and too much of taking the mystique out of Michael Myers. And one thing that when I was watching the Halloween Resurrection, a guy doing his critique on it earlier this afternoon before we got the chance to speak, was one of the critiques was when the scene where Busta Rhymes kind of bumps into Michael Myers when he's stalking around the house. And a lot of people don't like that because he's kind of chewing Michael Myers out. And they said a critical error is to not make your your killer, your monster in your movie, seem like he isn't invincible. Like Busta Rhymes couldn't have that conversation and say, take your ass outside, I'm doing the scaring here or whatever, and have Michael Myers just kind of off in retreat. There was that critique, and then there was, of course, Busta Rhymes's, breaking in and giving you the roundhouse kick, and almost being insinuated that he's holding his own with Michael Myers. You know what I mean?
Well, Mark, I'm laughing because I got to tell you, the first convention I ever did, I'm not kidding, to a person, the first 10 or 12 people that came up to me, the first thing they did was right in my face. How could you let Busta Rhymes kick you then? You're Michael Myers. He's just a goofy kung fu guy. Says, hey, man, it was in the script. What can I do?
Right.
With the scene where he's being stalked by Busta, when we rehearsed that, when he started tearing into me, I could not keep it together. I laughed so hard. And I just thought that scene kind of added to the mystique and cryptic nature of Michael Myers, because we all assumed he was just going to drive the knife into Busta's head.
Right.
And when he doesn't, it just showed another aside to Michael, I felt. I mean, I know that some people, it was almost, to me, it was like, maybe he was savoring this guy because he's dressed up like him, and he knows he's going to kill him eventually.
Right. But he did not kill him, though. He did not kill him.
That's the thing, is he ended up getting away. That's right. There is that, and a lot of people weren't happy about that. The original script, it was Decker, the kid that was texting her, that came in to save her. But the test audience didn't like that, and they didn't like the ending we shot, because I don't know if you know, Mark, the ending was shot in New York. We shot the 99.99 of it in Vancouver, but they shot the ending in New York, and the only scene in that movie that's not me is when she unzips the body bag and his eyes pop open. That's not me.
That's not you. Okay.
Yeah, that's the only part, yeah.
Well, you know what? And it's interesting that you had that take on when Busta is going through the house stalking Michael Myers, because I almost look at it like, he's looking at Busta Rhymes and kind of retreating from him. Almost, it does make him almost seem more diabolical, almost like, he's going to kill according to the plan that he has in his own mind. And maybe it's just a timing thing.
Exactly. It's almost like almost like there is a method to his madness.
I control the game. Right.
Yeah,
right.
There you go.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So I'm interested also to get your take on, I don't want to just make it all about the Halloweens. You're obviously a very accomplished and have lots of credits under your belt doing stunts. What was it that got you into doing stunt work? Are you just somebody that just realizes I got a high threshold for pain, or I like falling down or getting thrown off?
Well, it's funny. You sound like my shrink, Mark. No, what happened was, when I was 6 years old, I fell in love with Kato of the Green Hornet.
Okay.
And then again, when I was 13, I saw this movie called Fists of Fury, and I fell in love with Bruce Lee and the martial arts. And I lived in a very small town. I joined the one karate school that was there at the time. And the 17-year-old green belt instructor, I was 13, was a guy named Tony Morelli, who went on to become the WKA World Cruiserweight Kickboxing Champion.
Okay.
And because he was a world champion up in here in Vancouver, and the film industry was first starting to come to our province, he started doing, workman's compensation commercials, and started doing milk commercials. And then he just started doing some stand-in work on a Charlton Heston film. And the stunt people, because he was a world champion, thought to themselves, we should invite this guy into our business, because it'd be a real feather in our cap if we had a world champion.
Right.
And so they just kind of took him on, and because I was his protege and eventually became his best friend, in his words, he just kind of dragged me along. But, Mark, I so looked up to the guy, I could never imagine myself being on the same plane as him, as being a working stunt guy.
Right.
And one day we were working on a show called Street Justice. It was a Carl Weathers TV series, and we did a 2-day prison fight. And at the end of the second day, Ken Kersinger said, Brad, so-and-so and I are going for a beer. Why don't you join us? And in that sit down, Mark, is when Ken said to me, Brad, if you go you should come and do this, because there's a spot here for you. The Americans are coming up here in droves now that our dollar is only worth 75 cents. And he said, if you get a page, your headshot and a resume, I'll take you around and introduce you to everybody that you need to meet. And here we are today, Mark.
So when you look back, It's and so when you look back at stunts you've done, are there any that you approached where you thought like, wow, you know, how am I going to pull this off? Like, were there any that had you really intimidated as a stuntman?
Oh, yeah. There's been a few, Mark. You know, there's been more, Mark, where you are afraid of screwing up because there's a lot of, you know, it's never just fall on the X. It's always fall on the X in this angle and make sure the gun shoots that way and only goes 6 feet, not 7 feet. And it's, you know, but I was doubling an actor on a low budget, crappy TV show called Mantis. The lead character was an African-American scientist who was a paraplegic by day and a crime fighter by night. And I was doubling the bad guy who was like an alien character. He was silver and bald and, you know, super strength, all that. And I had to jump out of an 8 foot by 8 foot window, Mark, that, and it wasn't so much the height of the fall. It was the fact that the floor below had a patio that jutted out like 14, 15 feet. It was all concrete, had these big concrete railings. And so on the day when we were rehearsing, there was a nice sunny day. I had this nice ramp. There was no glass in the thing. I had my running shoes on, and away we go. But you still had to leap out into the sky.
Right.
It's as much a long jump as a high jump. You had to commit and jump through the window and then it took a second before you saw the airbag. And on the day at rehearsing, I was clearing the deck by about 10, 12 feet. Yeah. Now we're going to go shoot this thing. I've been on set for 13 hours where they've done me up with the bald cap and painted me all this and that. Right, the director's getting impatient. I go up to the room. Now I've got this big cape and a gun rack on my back. There's an 8 foot by 8 foot glass window, obviously in the window with knockers on it where they break it for you, Mark, but it's still heavy glass. And even though it's broken, it can slow you up.
Oh, sure.
And not only that, the worst part, well, there's a number of it just got worse and worse. The lighting lights had this glare coming off the window, so I couldn't see. I couldn't even see outside. And they had all these lighting flags that were halfway into my ramp for the first half. So for the first half of the run to the window, Mark, I kind of almost had to tiptoe along the edge of the ramp, then get into the middle. Right. So now I'm worried about how much speed I'm going to get up because if I bump one of those flags and jump, we're probably going to have to shoot it again. And then we have the windows. Right. Then the piece de resistance, the wardrobe shows up with the boots. Now, Ken was supposed to do it, but he had bad football knees from college, and he passed on it. But they'd already sized him in the wardrobe, Mark. So now I've got his knee-high, brand new, concrete-hard motorcycle boots that are 2 sizes too small.
Stiff as a board, right.
Stiff as a board. My toes are curled up like this. And the director's yelling, okay, we got to get going. And it was just like, okay, Brad, you should have stayed in school, but you can't walk away now. And so when they called action, I just said to the guy, see you downstairs. And I just ran as fast as I could. I jumped through that window. And he wanted me to look like a robot falling. He didn't want me to, I cleared the deck by only about 4 feet. But the director, Kim Manners, God bless him, he's gone now. He was just a terrific guy that worked on all the TV stuff up here. But he came up to me and he said, you know, Brad, that was the greatest stunt I've ever had the privilege to record. He had 5 cameras on it, Mark. And when he cut it for the episode, he used 4 of the shots. Like he jumps out of the window and then jumps out again and jumps up from here. He kind of showed the stunt 4 times, which made you kind of go back in reality. Right. And then he lands and he runs off. Yeah, he used 4 of the 5 cameras. So I'm proud of that gag. I didn't make any money doing it. But, like I said, when Ken said, I'm going to introduce everybody, and then you get a phone call from somebody you've never worked for, Mark, right? You got to go that extra yard because you got a good first impression, right? So the coordinator was brushing up all the glass. He says, "You're a hero, Brad, Loree." Like, okay. And
now, so what is your it reminds me of that. Hearing your life story and these stunts and everything reminds me of the movie Roadhouse, where Patrick Swayze is getting stitched up, and he just hands her like his medical file. I imagine yours must look pretty crazy. You must have sustained a lot of injuries over the years.
Well, Mark, actually, yeah, I've actually been on disability since September '09 because I've had so many, I broke both shoulders. I fractured my back, probably my neck, but, not that I'm a macho guy, but it looks bad on the coordinator if you tell people you're hurt. It looks bad if you admit that you're hurt, because if you get sidelined, out of sight, out of mind. It's that this is a business. It's not like Eric Roberts said to his sister. It's not show friendship. It's show business. So if you're hurt, you appear weak. You don't want to ever appear fragile. So, but I've been on disability because I had half a dozen things. I have half a dozen things wrong with my back and in my low spine, including 5 bulging discs and the whole gamut. So,
and I certainly can relate. I've had my back worked on a couple times too, in my lower back, and had some fusions and had some work done. So, and I'm not a stuntman, but I mean, I just, living with that chronic pain, I imagine, you're probably feeling a lot of those stunts at this point in your life.
Oh yeah. I'm reminded every day.
Now, are you somebody who's ever gone to the set of a movie that you were shooting to do stunt work? Who are some of the people that you've gotten the privilege to work with? And have you ever been starstruck yourself?
Excellent question, because I am first and foremost a movie fan,
Sure.
Which is why I'm not a big fan of the horror genre, but I'm a big fan of horror fans, because they're so loyal to their genre. And they're the nicest people in the world.
They are.
They always see blood, guts, and gore, but they give you the shirt off your back like that. But in answer to your question, as a young man that grew up, athletic and martial arts and, athletes and this and that. So I got to work with all the action guys. I had a fight scene with Jackie Chan and Jean-Claude Van Damme. I worked with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Lorenzo Lamas, Jet Li, and the list goes on. But as far as the most starstruck I've ever been, I was pretty starstruck, meaning I had met Arnold when I was 15 backstage at a bodybuilding contest, but didn't really get to hang out with him on set as such. And, meeting Stallone was a big deal because I was a huge Rocky fan.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah.
As a little boy, my dad was a huge fan of the movie called The Out-of-Towners with Jack Lemmon.
Yeah.
And I did a movie of the week with Mr. Lemmon called The Long Way Home. And I had some dialogue. I was what they call a stunt actor.
Yeah.
I had a couple lines and I get maced in the face and I crashed down on the floor.
Yeah.
But he was just standing there in this diner we were working in, so all by himself. And I went up to him and I said, Mr. Lemmon, I wouldn't normally bother you, but I'm Brad. I'm playing so-and-so today. And my dad and I are just such huge fans of yours. And he couldn't have been nicer, of course. These old pros, they're just the greatest guys. And when they called cut after I'd done my stunt crashing into the table, he was the first one that came up to me, pat me on the back, helped me out. That looked great. Great job, Brad.
Yeah,
and
that's
Charlton
nice.
Heston did the same thing when I doubled him on a movie called Alaska. And doubling Charlton Heston is a bigger deal to me today than it was at the time. I was a big Brando fan, and I heard I'd read a comment that Heston had made when Brando refused his Oscar. So I kind of had my nose out of joint with him.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I mean, he's one of the legends of Hollywood. And
Absolutely.
I also doubled Jack Palance. That was a big deal too.
Yeah. The great Jack. Yeah.
I mean, those guys are both gone now, but legends, just legends,
Well, I'm glad that you brought up Sylvester Stallone, and I'm in upstate New York, so I'm just a few miles down the road from the International Boxing Hall of Fame, and Sylvester Stallone has been inducted, and a lot of people will step back and kind of say, well, why? He only played a boxer, but what the Rocky movies really did to elevate the sport of boxing and really put a spotlight on it,
Absolutely. We all came out of the Warriors wanting to be the gang. We all came out of Rocky wanting to be a boxer.
It's funny you say that, because I remember being like 11 years old in 1984 and going to the movies to see The Karate Kid. And I just remember a bunch of 10, 11-year-old kids out in front waiting for their moms to pick them up. And everybody was crane kicking the mailbox. Just, everybody wanted to be Ralph Macchio, or like you said, everybody wanted to be Rocky, or everybody wanted to be Rambo, or everybody wanted to be the Terminator.
Sure.
And
I was the kid as a little, just a little kid. We came out of the animated Walt Disney, the Aristocrats. So I wanted to be a cat when I came.
Movies have that.
I am.
I mean, movies have that effect on us, though. They really do. Yeah, I mean, and so I'm curious to get your take too. I've noticed, following you on Instagram and having the, having the good fortune to be your friend on Facebook. But you're a tattoo guy. I'm a tattoo guy too. You got a lot of tattoos.
Yeah, Mark, since I've been semi-retired and not on camera, and we always wear long sleeves anyway.
Right.
Well, you know, when I got into Stunts Canada, the group up here, I wanted to get the logo, but I was doubling a guy shirtless on a wrestling show. The one the one I was working on right before Halloween.
Right.
But I knew that I wasn't going to be on camera a whole lot more. I started collecting my ink. My son's covered in ink, and he and I were in Panama a couple of years ago, and I really got a real sense of community amongst the tattoo aficionados. Right. And I'm down to my last I got maybe 8 more I want to get, then I think I'm going to be done. But I just thought of a new one today, which I want to get ASAP. I was in an AA meeting. I want to get the first step tattooed along my clavicle backwards, so I can read it in the mirror every day when I'm shaving to remind myself how powerless I am over booze, Mark.
Well, so talk to me a little bit about that then, if you don't mind, because I think people in my audience can certainly hear that. First of all, congratulations on your sobriety. And how long do you have in?
4 days. Mark, this is my I can't even count how many times I've been in and out of the rooms for 20-something years.
Yeah.
For booze and for drugs.
Sure.
And actually, Mark, I gained like probably 90 pounds during the pandemic, and I'm right now 100 pounds overweight. And tomorrow evening, 11-minute walk from my house is an overeating anonymous meeting that I'm going to go to and see what I can learn, because I'm having such a hard time dealing with my boredom and my depression and my loneliness, because I live by myself in a co-op.
I get it.
And the pandemic almost killed me, man. Not the pandemic, but just being on disability without having a purpose, And I know if I lost some weight, because I'm in the group, I could get, I was working 2 or 3 days a month, which doubled my income before the pandemic.
Right.
And then I gained all this weight, and now I'm almost unhireable. In fact, I've turned down work, Mark, just because I was too embarrassed to be seen this big. So anyway, blah, blah, blah.
Well, so how did you fare during the pandemic, though, from a physical standpoint? Did you contract COVID at all?
I contracted it once. Yes, Mark, I did. And I'm still kind of anti-vax, because I really don't know. There's so many different opinions on both sides of the fence. I just don't like being forced to do anything. And our prime minister, anyway, I did get COVID, but Mark, all it was, when I got COVID, I was sneezing, and I had I thought my allergies had come back. I have a great naturopath who's a traditional Chinese medicine lady, literally fixed my allergies about 12 years ago.
Right.
But I was sneezing and I had the itchy eyes, but I didn't feel sick as per se. I had a slight cough, which I get when I get, when you get stuffed up. But
that's kind of what mine was like too. Just kind of felt like a mild cold. I am vaccinated, but it's because my day job is a nurse. So I mean, it's kind of imperative to my job, and they kind of really hold your feet to the. They kind of really hold your feet to the flame. Yeah, believe it or not, I take this hair off, and when I go to work, and yes, I'm this is my super strength right here.
Boy, Samson.
But the good thing is that I can take it off and I can leave it home, and then I can put it on here, and I can make my claim that I'm Diamond David Lee Roth Jr.
There you go. There you go. I thought that was a poster of you when I first saw it.
That makes me feel good. Well, as soon as the DNA testing is conclusive, I hope that I find out that we are one and the same. That would be great. Yeah, I'm looking for some kind of an inheritance so I can retire early. So when you look back on your career, do you look at it, like, what are you most proud about the legacy that you left behind, like with your stunts and your movies?
What I'm most proud of, Mark, is the fact that this next generation of kids that are coming up, that are now the new generation of coordinators,
right?
Almost to a man, they all love Brad Loree, because one kid says I was one of the first guys to ever hire him. One kid says you were the first stunt guy I ever met. I've got a number of guys like that, and they all say that I welcomed them with open arms, gave them really good advice, told them to call me anytime. And they remember that, because I have another buddy who wasn't like that when these kids first came up. And these guys remember like elephants, and they won't hire this guy because he was a jerk. And that is what I'm most proud of, because I say that especially because when I first came on the scene, I was appalled at the way some guys treated me, especially because I was brought into the business with a guy that I thought was beloved by everybody, and he was. But, you know, when it comes to men and the way they make money, we can get kind of funny, you know, Mark.
Absolutely.
You know, we are programmed to protect and provide, and that's what a job in money making is to us to this day. Yep. We still have those caveman instincts, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love you to death, but if I can steal your job, I will.
Sure.
So that's what I'm most proud of. I'm proud that I always gave 100%. I when I look back on see, Mark, I always wanted to be an actor. That was really my true love as a little kid.
Right.
It just happens that my connections were in the stunt world, and I have the utmost respect for these stunt people. But I got to be honest, I do not understand the mentality of someone, especially a young person, that instead of being the guy riding the horse that gets off and kisses the girl, I want to be the person that falls off the horse.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the? Makes no sense. Anyway,
you got to be, yeah. Your train of thought's definitely got to be a little left of center to be in that kind of business, for sure.
But there's 2 or 3 stunts that I never got to do as a stunt guy. Like I never got to get hit by a car back when I was young enough to take it. I did partial burns, but I never got to do a full burn. Although I've done safety on them, and they're scary as hell. And if they go wrong, they go really wrong.
I can imagine.
And, I say I never did a really big high fall, but I did do the one out the window, which was trickier than a high fall. And I also did a couple of high falls in about 60 feet into boxes. So that's a pretty good fall.
I'm curious, though, like the scene in Resurrection where you chase Jamie Lee Curtis early on up to the roof. How do you stage that, where you guys both kind of go, ass over tea kettle over the side of the thing and you're holding onto the rope?
Well, we shot that in pieces. If you look closely, it's clips. And it runs together, and your brain doesn't really recognize it. That's the change.
Okay.
So where we flip over, that was her double, Donna Keegan, and myself, and we were both harnessed to the side of the stage,
right?
Just on action, because we were in a certain kind of position. But we both flipped over and fell into mats.
Right.
They brought a crane up. And we were cable, but they also brought a crane up with some mats. So we just flipped over on the other side, and then picked it up on from below with Jamie.
One thing that I don't like about these new Halloweens, though, I don't like the fact that they changed the storyline in the narrative to not make them brother and sister. I did not like that. I did not like that we were supposed to just going into these 2018 movies just forget everything that happened after 1978.
Yeah, the lack of continuity in the story is really, that's people walk away after a while.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, not that the Friday the 13th has been any better with him going off to outer space. But have you seen Halloween Ends, Mark?
I did. Yes. Yeah. I watched it. I watched it on Peacock. The whole family got together because we're all avid Halloween and or Michael Myers fans. So we didn't have to go out to the theater because all of my kids now have kids of their own, grandkids. So it's tough to get us all out on the same night with babysitters to a movie theater. But Peacock, the last couple of installments, has offered it up. So for people that can't get out to the theater and watch it, I did get a chance to watch it. Without spoiling too much for you, I would definitely be in the camp of someone that is not a fan.
Gotcha.
Yeah, not a fan.
I mean, one buddy of mine told me that they're introducing some new. It's like he said. First of all, he said Michael's hardly in it.
Yep, that's true.
It's almost like they're trying to springboard a new serial killer. Which would have been
a great. I saw where they're going with it, but it's something that they should have done probably a couple of movies ago. Then, if you're really wanting to end the damn thing, what people really want to see is a lot of the showdown between Loree and Michael. I mean, if you're going to build it as Halloween Ends and you're going to build it as, someone's finally going to win, we're going to have this, head-to-head inevitable battle, I mean? And then, for it to fall that short, which, without giving too much away, we do get that, but it's so minuscule and so built up to be more than it really ends up actually being. It's very disappointing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Very disappointing.
I'll watch it at some point. I'm not going to pay to see it.
Don't pay to see it. Yeah, do yourself a favor. Keep the money in your wallet.
I was out east.
And I hate to say that. Believe me, Brad, I hate to say that because, I don't really love a lot of horror movies, but what really lured me in with Michael Myers, and you hit on it perfectly several minutes ago, is that 1978 one was really horror done right. There was that absence of blood, like you mentioned. Everything was dark. Everything was built on that slow burn, that suspense. Of course, the great musical score by John Carpenter. You know, you feel him through the movie getting closer and closer and closer to this group of babysitters, you know what I mean? And you just feel that tension building. And I think that's horror done right. I agree with you on sometimes it's just being too much gore in today's horror movies, you know, and there's not that slow burn and that tension and that building.
Well, there was so much left up to the audience's imagination, and that's where the real horror is created. When you show us everything and you tell us everything, it's
yeah. And I think that's what's so genius about The Mask, because I watched a really great documentary when they were deciding on the masks for the original ones. And you know, when they brought back that William Shatner mask and they stripped it down and painted it and did what they did, the most poignant comment that I heard on that was the people in the costume department saying, you know, it's the neutral features of a man, just a white face. And when you see it, you kind of put your own fears onto the mask. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even know why you're scared of just this blank, white, expressionless face, but it's terrifying.
I always likened that mask to be the only thing I can compare it to is what Hannibal Lecter did to that one cop, because his mask reminded me, it looked like skin.
Yes.
Like the skin from somebody's face that he was wearing. That's when I first saw it. That's what creeped me out, because that's what I thought it was. It was somebody else's face stripped off and wearing it as a mask.
And of course, a lot of the greatness in that movie too, you know, where they started to go over budget was, of course, getting the late great Donald Pleasance to play Dr. Loomis, because I think his dialogue and just the way he talked about, you know, the Michael that he saw from a child growing up, and, you know, all his great dialect of, oh, he had the darkest eyes, the devil's eyes. You know, I think what Donald Pleasance added to that movie, you know what I mean, like took the place of a lot of stuff that they didn't need to show.
Yeah, no, I regret that I didn't get to meet Mr. Pleasance, but he was terrific. But I was at a show in Chicago with the guy that's playing him now, where they made him up. He looks so much like Donald Pleasance, it's eerie.
Yeah.
The actor, the guy they used, fantastic.
And I did kind of a problem a little bit with the Rob Zombie ones, because, you know, as much as they tried to give a backstory in that first one, I feel like it was a lot of just broad strokes. You know, they're making them from the broken family, the abusive stepfather, the torturing small animals. That's all stuff that every run-of-the-mill serial killer seems to have, you know, in their backstory. It would have been nice if they would have gave them a little bit different slant, you know what I mean, so you could have figured out a little more of the supernatural stuff. If they are going to go back into the backstory, which they could have just left alone, and you could just think like, geez, what's making this little kid such a sick little fucker? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like it wasn't very original. That's for gosh darn sure. You're right, Mark.
I think the less we know about Michael, the better it serves the movie.
Absolutely. It makes him cryptic and mysterious, you know, and just that much scarier.
Now listen,
I understand what we're dealing with.
I'd like to know though, like, why we didn't get to see you actually kill Tyra Banks.
Well, we did shoot that scene, but they decided instead, I guess he decided that maybe he didn't like the way she reacted, you know, because I remember that I did not, those cables were really loose, and maybe it ended up looking like that. Or I thought the reveal worked really well. I thought it was, because they did that a couple times. We saw him kill the kid with the tripod, but the kid is in the upstairs attic ladder when they drop down. That was kind of freaky. And but him jumping through the mirror to kill the one other kid. So the reveal, I thought it worked. We did, but no, we did shoot me coming up behind her with the cables and strangling her.
Yeah. Now I've seen footage of all of you guys who have done the mask at these Halloween conventions, and I've got to say that for a sick, sadistic, twisted serial killer like Michael Myers, he's been played by some of the nicest guys in the business. You all seem like extremely nice guys, and not that I would expect anybody to be an evil, sadistic person. I know you're just playing a role and donning a mask. Probably the guy that looks like he could really do it the most is probably Tyler Mane, because he actually looks like a scary son of a bitch.
Yeah. He's a great guy, though. Fellow Canadian.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
So do you think, though, now, you know, I know they build this last one as Halloween Ends, but, you know, with people so divided on it and the general consensus not being so favorable the way it was ended, do you really think that it's just Blumhouse is done? Do you think in a year or 2 or 5 we'll see somebody pick up the Halloween genre again if there's money to be made?
I don't. The same way Frankenstein and Dracula never die.
Yeah.
This is the end of Jamie Lee Curtis's involvement with the franchise.
Correct.
And of course, so was Resurrection. But anyway, Michael Myers. Hey, listen, these movies make very good money, and it's almost a guarantee you're going to triple your dose. So why would you stop making them?
Right.
And the fans don't want it to end. The fans don't want it to end. God.
No.
You know, maybe they'll shoot Michael up into Mars next. You know, follow Jason's example, or you know,
stranger things have happened, Brad. Stranger things have happened.
Maybe he'll be wearing his mask and nothing else in a nudist colony. Who fucking
Well, you sound like you've got some very definitive ideas. Maybe you'll be in the director's chair.
Oh, baby, I want to reprise the role as a fat sumo wrestler.
No, I'm thinking of maybe Brad Loree, maybe in the director's chair for the next one.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'd love to take that on. I'm reading a couple scripts right now, more killer stuff, but whether they happen or not, you know, it's like until you got the 6th check in the bank, this thing's not happening. So well,
you know, taking case in point, and I read his book; it was fantastic. But a guy that successfully started out stunting into directing was the great Hal Needham.
Yes, yeah,
and he had some success as a director.
Absolutely, he was very fortunate that Burt Reynolds had as much respect for the stunt guys.
Yes.
I mean, I've heard rumors that Burt did some stunts before he became an actor, but I don't think he was ever a stunt, like full-time stunt guy.
Right.
I think he was just an actor that did his own stunts.
Now, are there any guys that you ever met on movie sets? And of course, you know, full discretion here, you don't have to mention any names, but are there guys that you worked with on movie sets, big name actors or otherwise, who treated you less than, you know, who thought that they were kind of, you know, big shit and they were the star of the movie, that didn't treat crew members and ancillary people all that great?
No, I've heard stories about non-name actors, but I can't say that I actually have to.
Well, you are making these guys look good, though. You know, you are making these guys look good.
And the thing I was going to say, Mark, is I got to tell you the opposite is when I was on Time Cop with Jean-Claude Van Damme, the second day on the show, we were sitting upstairs and we were watching the fight scene on the monitor, just he and I, but he kept telling me how good looking he thought I was. And you say that once, you say that twice, but Mark, he said it 6 times, so I finally got up and left because I was getting uncomfortable. And I mean, you say it to a guy once for a guy, okay, it's, you know, I said, you're nice looking too. Oh yeah, but you all gonna get anyway. So no, I have, you know, we've all heard that Stallone's supposed to be a big giant douchebag, but I got a buddy that doubled Mickey Rourke on a movie called Get Carter, the remake of the Michael Caine film. Yeah, and he said Stallone couldn't have been nicer to him.
Yeah. So a lot of it's very subjective too. You know, I mean, people. You know, a lot of times people are going to get hurt over something that somebody else might not get hurt over. You
and I have a bad day, a handful of people notice it for 5 minutes. If you're a big star and you have a bad day, that word gets around, and because of the haters and the jealousy, he's a douchebag. You know,
suddenly TMZ is running a report on what a douchebag you are.
Exactly. You know, and dirt sells and pretty flowers don't. I don't know.
Well, Brad, I don't feel like that I am looking into the eyes of evil.
How about now?
Okay. Now I may have to go change. Now I may have to go legitimately change my underwear.
Mark, shoot me your mailing address. I'm going to send you a signed picture.
Okay, that sounds great. And listen, it has been just an honor to talk to you, and I appreciate you being so generous with your time. And I do hope we can stay in touch and do this again sometime.
I was going to say, Mark, anytime. Keep in touch. Shoot me your address, and
I will do that.
Let me know how you are from time to time. Thanks, brother.
Okay, Brad Loree, I appreciate it so much, sir. Thank you so much.
See you, everybody. Be well.
Yes.
Be safe.
Yes. You too, sir. Thank you very much.
Ciao, man.
Take it easy.
You too, brother.
Well, there he is, folks. You just looked into the eyes of Michael Myers. One of Michael Myers. One of many guys to play Michael Myers. But that is Brad Loree, Canadian stuntman, actor, and, you know, to me, one of the most important, iconic roles of all time. That guy played Michael Myers. For fuck's sake, if you're a horror fan, you geek out on shit like that. That is the great Brad Loree. You can see him in numerous films. If you go to his IMDb page, he's been a stunt double for so many people, as you heard him mention. Of course, he played the iconic Michael Myers in 2002's Halloween Resurrection, where I would have liked to have seen him just stick a knife right through Busta Rhymes' fucking forehead, but that didn't happen. And even though Tyra Banks did end up dead in that movie, we didn't get to see it, which I would have loved to have seen. And quite frankly, I wish Michael Myers would go to the set of Dancing with the Stars and kill her right now, but probably not going to happen. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode of Pod Scum with Brad Loree. And remember, guys, take it easy and keep it sleazy.